Ooh, that looks tasty. Stars mean many things to many different people in many cultures. Usually this is the part of the video where I have some kind of dumb little skit. However, considering this game is created based on the Navajo creation of the stars stories, I decided not to do that right now. So, enjoy learning about Solani. Welcome folks, Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another Kickstarter preview, and today we are talking about Solani, published by Final Frontier Games, designed by Drake Villarreal with art by Bojan Drango, and I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. Now before I get started, please make sure you turn on the Klingon subtitles, because if I make any rules errors, that's where you'll find those corrections. Additionally, I do need to point out that everything you see here is just a prototype, and the quality will most certainly improve as these are just printed on foam core, and the design and look may change as well. Now what Solani is it is a tile laying drafting style game in which you are building up the constellations in your individual sky, which is your player board, and it is all based on Navajo creation stories. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played, and you'll jump ahead to my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk quickly about how this game works. So the game is played over 12 rounds, and in each of those rounds you're going to draft 2 tiles. You're going to draft 1 circular tile, and you will draft 1 diamond-shaped tile. And at the beginning of each round, there will be anywhere from 2 to 5 of each of those set out on the board, the number being determined by the number of players in the game. There will always be 1 more tile than there are players. And what's going to happen is, through a snake draft, players will draft either the circular tiles, which are star clusters. And I will say that when you draft a star cluster, you can immediately exchange it for one of these planets, which can also go out into the sky. And the planet that you're able to select is determined by the number of stars on your star cluster. Or they can select one of these star branches. And what these branches do is they connect different star clusters together. Now, why do you care? I'm glad you asked. The reason you care is because what you're doing is, as you are building up your various star clusters, you're creating your constellations in the sky, but at the end of the game, scoring is going to be based on, for the most part, how well you have connected these branches to different star clusters. And what's going to happen is your scoring will be determined by the star clusters that you have, and if you have an equal number of branches connecting to that cluster as you have stars on the cluster. So for this one right here, we have 3 stars on the cluster, and then as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 branches connecting to it. And as you can see, as you're slowly building out your board, you will be having a more and more difficult time making sure that those clusters will score. However, there are more ways to score. These red tiles here are called dark sky tiles because there are no branches, they don't connect to anything. But every time you completely surround one of them with these other branch tiles, then you're going to get to select features that are out there on the board for you to draft. And when you draft them, you'll get to place them immediately, and it'll tell you on the bottom what the condition is for you to get points for that cluster, and you'll simply take that and you'll put that out on the board like so, wherever it is that you would like. And I'll note that there are 2 difficulty levels of these clusters that have a variety of ways to score points. So you'll be scoring your points based at the end of the game based off of your star clusters that have the correct number of branches to them. You'll be losing points if you ever have any of these branches that have a branch kind of going off into nowhere. And you'll also be scoring points for your planets. You're going to score points for your planets every time you manage to have one that is completely isolated from anything. It's alone in the sky, so there's no branches connecting to that, and you'll score points for your planets based off of the color. The more you have of the exact same color on the board that are in a scoring position, you'll wind up getting more points, and you can also get points for having different colored planets on your board. And you'll play through 12 rounds. At the end of those 12 rounds, the last thing that you will do is you will check these scoring, in-game scoring condition cards that in the prototype, I only have 4 of them, but I can only assume in the final version we'll have more than just 4, so it'll be a little bit different each game. You add up all your points, the person with the highest point value wins. And that's it. That is how this game is played. Obviously, it is a little bit more complex than that, but not much. And the only additional complexity comes with as you play through the game and as people start drafting things in front of you. And the question becomes, well, what do I draft now? Do I want to do a little hate drafting and pick something that's not great for me, but I can look over on their board and I can see that they could really use this, or whatever it is that you want to do? So, what do I like about this game? First of all, I like the drafting of the game. It's just a simple snake draft, but it has an added mechanic to it that if the first person drafts one of these branch tiles down here, everybody else has to draft a branch tile. And then everyone will come back the other way drafting your star clusters or taking your star clusters and trading them in for planets. And there's just that bizarre little bit of strategy there as you have to pay attention to what you need. But of course, if you're going first, it means you're also going last on the other one. So trying to figure out what you need the most right now, what it is that might affect the other players around the table. And you can pretty easily see around the table what people need. And so that is a fun bit of strategy. And along with that, the way you're choosing where to lay these tiles out on the board is a whole nother bit of strategy because you're going to be getting these feature cards and these extra pieces are going to come out on your board as you're playing through the game, but only when you block these dark sky tiles off. And so when are you going to do that? And if multiple people do that, then again, you're in a drafting situation of trying to pick the one that helps you the most and hurts another player the most because maybe that's the one that they really needed. And figuring that out is a fun puzzle. And I also enjoy the way the player boards are differentiated in such a simple and clever way. And what happens is, at the beginning of the game, you take one of these tiles out, and that's telling you where you put your dark sky tiles. And it's simple enough to place them out, but what's happening is every player is placing them out on their player board based on the orientation of this card from where they are sitting. So mine will look like this on my board, but to someone sitting over there, it's going to look slightly different when they set theirs up. So, for example, mine looks like this, but on the other side, based on their orientation, they're going to have it look like that instead. And it's very subtle, but it's just a very clever way to differentiate the starting player board so everyone isn't trying to do the same thing. And I really think that is just a super clever bit of design there. I really do like it. I also appreciate how the trading in of star clusters for planets work. I think it's a lovely little option to have because maybe there's nothing out here that's particularly useful to you. So then, okay, I'll just throw it away and get one of these planets. And I just have to make sure that I set it up in some way to where it's totally blocked off down the road, not particularly hard. Ha ha ha, I say. And the last thing I'll toss out that I enjoy is I do really appreciate that Final Frontier has recognized the importance of cultural sensitivity with this game, and they have hired a cultural consultant to make sure that the Navajo culture is represented in a way that is truthful and fair and honest. Now, I will say that in the prototype I do not have any of that information, but I am excited to see what kind of information winds up in the rule book. And I'm particularly hoping that perhaps on these cards here, that there will be some kind of text on the bottom or something, just a sentence or two that will tell me what is the significance of this particular constellation or this particular animal to that native tribe. I just think that would be very cool. And I'm looking forward to finding out what it is that they do with that. And then, of course, I appreciate that it's a quick game. This is an under an hour game. If you're playing two player, it's probably a 30-minute game or so. So what are my quibbles with the game? And my first quibble is going to be with the art style on the boards here. Now, I like it. And about half the people that I've shown pictures to, I said, "Ooh, that looks really pretty. I like that." Maybe more than half of them, but there are some people that have looked at it and said, "It's too busy. It's challenging for me to look at this board and see really what's going on. There's all the lines everywhere, and it gets confusing, and it's hard for me to visualize what it is that I am trying to do." And though that is not true for me, a few people have said it. So it might just be that this art style and this design doesn't work for you. I don't know. Which I guess if you looked at it, you're aware of it. So that's probably a silly thing for me to put in the review, but you get what I'm saying. Next thing that I'll say is this is a game that if you are prone to analysis paralysis, like with many tile laying drafting style games, you can totally fall into that and find yourself just staring at your board and then staring at this board right here and what's there, or staring at what the options are of these cards to draft, and the game can slow down as far as that goes. But again, it's a tile laying drafting game, which is pretty, well, that's kind of par for the course as far as those go. And the only other warning that I will kind of toss out there is when it comes to the end game, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff that you're scoring. And as you can see here, you get to the end of the game and it's just all this stuff that you're adding up, and it's a little bit point salady, and maybe that's not your jam. You don't want to have to add things up and figure out negative points and all that. But really, folks, that's it. I think this is a very strong offering from Final Frontier Games. I think it's a super strong offering, first solo design offering from Drake Villarreal, whose co-design work I've greatly appreciated, and I've really, really liked his solo work. And I think if you like tile laying and drafting games, then there's a whole lot worse you can do than this one. I think it's clever. I think it's fun. I think it does really interesting stuff. I really like the drafting in it. And to me, it scratches that same itch that Sagrada scratches. It kind of has that vibe to me, but in a way that's just, well, in some ways more attractive, because you don't have your little numbers you're looking at. You got these stars everywhere, and this is just a prototype, so everything's going to be prettier. I've enjoyed it. I think it's very clever. It's quick, interesting. It's the way the setups are going to change will keep the game varied enough. There's a nice selection of these feature cards here with all their little tiles. It looks neat. It's attractive on the table. And I'm really excited to check out the partner game that is going to be on Kickstarter at the exact same time as this one, about the creation of the stars in an African nation. And I apologize, I don't know what tribe or what region of Africa that is, but I will certainly, if I get a prototype, talk about that as well. So there you have it, folks. That is Solani. I think if you're a fan of Final Frontier games, you're going to feel like this one is different from the most recent offerings. It's a different feel, a different weight, different vibe, but it is there. And I'm very excited to see the final product of this one. I think it's one that you should absolutely check out if you enjoy drafting and tile laying. 100% check this one out. So, as always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with a timestamp. I'll put that into the Klingon subtitles. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.